Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to the Mystic Therapist Podcast. Today is a very, very special episode because we are diving into something so I have never fully shared this story before, but today I'm going to be talking about the time that I left a 5-year healthy relationship. So this was about 3 years ago. I'm going to start with just kind of like sharing a little bit of my story and then getting into if you are in this place, maybe you are going through a breakup, maybe you've been broken up with, maybe you're in a relationship, you're not sure if it's the one for you, maybe you're not sure if you're self-sabotaging or if this really isn't your person, and also how to know the difference, like how to know if your intuition is right or not, or if this person is your person, or just kind of how to navigate all of those really stressful things when you are going through a breakup and how terrifying and lonely it can feel. So we're going to get into all this. I'm also going to give you some tips at the end, like very tangible takeaways. If you are in a relationship, some things that you can do to help give yourself some more clarity about this relationship. And also, if you are in a breakup, some things you can do to help navigate a breakup more easier with more confidence, peace, and ease, and things like that. So this is a very, very juicy and great episode. So let's dive right in. I was in an almost 5-year relationship, and this relationship was not a bad relationship. It was a healthy, good relationship. We moved to multiple states together. We had dogs together. We had different houses together, went through college, multiple jobs, traveled the world, and did all of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't my person and I wasn't his person. And so I really just want to talk about that experience because I've gotten a lot of questions about it just in my personal life. And also when it comes to being a therapist, I swear majority time versus not, the thing that is causing someone an immense amount of stress and anxiety and confusion and feeling lost and just feeling stuck and all these things, a lot of time has to do with our personal and intimate relationships. A lot of people come to therapy because of something that's going on in their relationships. They're having hard time forming relationships. They don't know if this relationship is right for them. They're going through a divorce. This is a new relationship, whatever it might be. So relationships are a huge part of our life. And as women, historically, we have needed relationships. We have needed a man to survive. So there can be so much wrapped up into this. So yeah, like I said, I was in a long-term relationship for about 5 years. I went through my bachelor's program, my master's program, moved to multiple states, did all kinds of things together, just as people do in relationships, had worked through a lot of deep trauma and triggers. And this person actually helped me heal so many parts of myself. And it was very healthy, very stable. But at the end of the day, after a lot of reflection and being by myself and going to therapy and going on solo walks and doing meditations and all of these things, I had come to the conclusion, and my intuition was telling me that this wasn't my forever person. And that was a very, very hard conclusion to come to because on paper, everything was right. It didn't make any logical sense. But the brain and the heart are two different things. And my heart and my body were telling me something different than what my brain was telling me. So that was a big wrestle. And if you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We can go through this like mind and heart wrestle with so many things in our lives, with friendships, with careers. Sometimes the hardest relationships to leave are often the ones that there's nothing inherently bad happening. And I've heard a lot of other people, especially around my age, in their 20s or in their 30s, they've been with somebody so long, they don't know anything else. And so they just stay because they fear they won't ever find someone better. I also had these fears. I won't find anybody better. I don't know what it's like to be alone. How am I going to financially be stable on my own? Where am I going to live? What is this going to look like for me long term? Am I making a massive mistake? Am I self-sabotaging? Is this an avoidant attachment thing kind of coming up for me? So there's so many things that are intertwined whenever we're in relationships that can get brought up. And so that's why it can be so hard to make a decision to end a relationship. And also, if you're a person who's been broken up with, it can be very, very heartbreaking to receive that breakup as well. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this. Also, this wasn't an impulsive decision at all. I know I make it seem like that. Like one day I just had this feeling. But like I said, there was a lot of years reflecting, and it would come in ebbs and flows. It would come up, but like I would start questioning things, and then things would be really good. And then I would start questioning things again. And then I'd be like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. This person is amazing. Like, how could you ever think that? And so this feeling kept coming back, this intuitive nudge kept coming back, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. It was just like all consuming. It really, really was. And I want to make it clear that I'm not speaking to someone who is in an abusive relationship. I'm not speaking about dangerous relationships. If you're in an abusive or a dangerous relationship, please, please get out of it. And I want to let you know you are strong enough to get out of it. I'm going to give lots of tips. If you are in that place where you need to get out of a relationship, how you can do that. And there's a ton of resources too. If you look up things online about, maybe there are local kind of communities and places that you could go or people you could talk to. But I'm going to give some resources and tips as well at the end for if you are experiencing a breakup, not just like having to make the decision of a breakup. So this episode is kind of for people thinking like nothing is really wrong with my relationship. Why can't I commit to anybody? Why doesn't this feel right? Why can't I shake this feeling? Like, what is wrong with me? Am I making the biggest mistake of my life? And these were all questions that I was personally asking myself when I was considering ending this relationship. So I want to get into why leaving feels so hard. Like for me personally, making this decision felt like the biggest decision and the scariest decision of my life. It was scarier than moving across the country by myself at 18. It was scarier than any place that I had ever traveled to. It was scarier than anything that I had experienced before. I think heartbreak and relationships are a different flavor of pain and fear and loss that is uncomparable to anything else. And that's why it makes it so, so hard. And so many people go to therapy that have to do with things that come up in their relationships. So let's dig into a little bit of the psychology on why leaving a relationship and why breakups feel nearly impossible to kind of cope with. Like, why the heck are they so hard? So there's so many different fears that can come up. And there's two types of fears that I've kind of thought about and that I personally went through. And there was the fear of that was coming up within myself, the fear of being alone, the fear of, can I do better? Will I find better? The fear of I was self-sabotaging. Then there was the fears and the perceptions of other people and societal and cultural pressure and norms that were placed on me too. So there was like these external things and these internal things. Externally thinking, what is my family going to think? What is his family going to think? People are going to be disappointed. People are going to think I'm crazy or I'm stupid. They're not going to understand. People are going to think like, this was a perfect relationship. We could have married this person and would have been happy forever, blah, 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 blah. Like all of those voices externally, and then also my own stuff that was coming up as well. So I was dealing with a lot of internal conflict, as you can tell. And if you've been in this position or if you're in this position right now, it can be really, really hard. And I want to let you know you're not alone. And I actually listen to someone's podcast, Sahara Rose's podcast, like every single week religiously because she was going through a breakup, or not a breakup, but a divorce of someone that she had been with for 7 years. And listening to that podcast is genuinely what gave me so much courage and hope that I too could be okay not in this relationship if she could go through what she had went through. And that's why I wanted to make this episode and share my story and to help anybody who might be navigating the same thing. So the reason why we have so many of these fears coming up, it isn't just psychology, it is biology, it is history, it is culture, it is attachment wounds. It's so, so deep, fears that come up when it comes to relationships. If you think about women, historically, we have literally needed men to survive. And a lot of us women have inherited generations of messages that in order to have safety and survival and to be able to do anything, we need a man. We need partnership. And if we don't have partnership, something's wrong with us or we're not worthy So that deep part of us, like instinctually, generationally, that is messages that women have got, maybe not me necessarily, but in certain parts of the world, women are still not able to do hardly anything. To do anything. They're not able to work. They're not able to get an education. They basically are just alive and they have to marry off to somebody. And that is their sole purpose. And so for a woman to be single, for a woman as a woman to end a relationship, it feels very crazy. And if you like, if you know, kind of thing. But, even in the US, women have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot more freedoms in in the US than in other parts of the world. But if you think back, I was like doing some research on just when women have been able to do certain things. Let me read you guys some of these dates. So in 1963, the Equal Act was passed, meaning that we had to outlaw sex-based wage discrimination between men and women. So that was actively okay. Does this still happen? Yes. 1965, the Supreme Court legalized birth control for married couples. It wasn't until then, till we were able to even take birth control. 1974, it was illegal to deny credit or loans on the basis of sex or marital status. So I'm not trying to make this political, and it's not about any of those politics, but it is about our rights as women and how we haven't been able to do a lot without a man. So to go through a breakup and to be alone, especially if you are in your later 20s and 30s, it feels kind of scary because of the history of the world and how things are in certain parts of the world still. So on a deeper level, it can feel scary. And that's why I think some of those wounds might come up, or those worthiness wounds might come up. And that's because, these are the facts. This is the deeper psychological aspect of why it can feel very fearful. And a lot of women are scared to leave relationships because their worth is tied to their relationship, or they think that this is their only worth, or this is all they can do, or if they're alone, they're going to be judged, or if they're in their 30s and they don't have kids yet and they're not married, that something's wrong with them. So people will stay in the wrong situations just because of that fear. Because of that stigma that is literally so outdated, but at the same time, is it? For some people, are there still messages in certain parts of the world and in our culture and society and from different people's families that still exists? And so I think that that's why it makes it so hard for women to be able to have courage and leave something, because we have needed these relationships with a man and partnership with a man until literally like 50 years ago. We couldn't get a credit card without a man. And so that's why it feels so scary in a lot of ways. And also, like I mentioned, attachment wounds. That's another layer to this. So your attachment wounds, I have another video about anxious attachment specifically, that can make it really hard. Whenever you are very fearful of being by yourself, you're very insecure to be alone. You need that validation. You need that security with another person. You feel insecure without a companion, or you're very avoidant. So you fear intimacy. You're like on the other end of the spectrum where it's like you don't want anybody near you. You don't want anybody around you because you're scared somebody's going to hurt you. So you push people away. And that was the part that I was talking about when it came to self-sabotage, because I also wanted to make this video because I have self-sabotaged a lot of things in my life. And that is a common thing that can come up for me, is like wanting to run or wanting to escape when there's really nothing to escape from. It's like I'm being trapped in my own mind. And I only learned that through therapy. I really had to sit with like, how do I make this decision? Because there's so many layers here. There's so many layers to relationships and breakups. So I also want to talk about why relationships trigger us on so many different levels. I mentioned attachment wounds these are formed in childhood. And if we have had trauma in our early relationships or with our caregivers, these will pop up in our relationships, and that's why people will be scared to leave. Also, trauma that people have endured. This can make relationships feel threatening. It can make feeling alone threatening. So relationships can oftentimes become our mirrors, and I say this a lot, like people are portals. Like whenever we're in relationships with in a relationship with somebody, I mean, that is the time that that is the ultimate self-development project, is whenever you are in a relationship with somebody, because when you are close to somebody and vulnerable and you're with somebody, they are going to show you all the parts of yourself that still need healed. So our partners don't sometimes create our wounds. They will reveal them to us, what still needs healing, what still needs worked on. And that's why it's really important to always be doing your own self-reflection when you're noticing points of tension or difficulties coming up, because it might not be them, it might be you. So like I said, when I was navigating that one breakup, I have fears of abandonment. I'm going to be alone forever. Nobody's going to stay with me like this person would have stayed with me. Fear of disappointing people, fear of disappointing my family or friendships, or, we had dogs. So fear of them leaving me. And that was a big wound that I had to work on. Probably the worst fucking wound that I ever had to go through was not having my dogs anymore. Fears of not being enough, fears of, will I ever find something better? And I hear this so often. So many people, men and women, doesn't even matter, will stay in a relationship because they don't think it's their own self-worth and self-confidence is so low that they think that this is all they can get, whenever they're not even getting something that is healthy, or that someone that appreciates them, or someone that reciprocates the love that they give to them. And so they will settle in the wrong relationship because they think that that's the best that they could do. Because I think your relationships, what you put up for in a relationship, has a lot to do with like how you feel about yourself. Because if you have high standards for yourself and you treat yourself with a lot of respect and love, then you are going to expect that from another person and want that from another person, because you treat yourself so well. Why would you let somebody else treat you bad? But if you treat yourself pretty poorly and you view yourself pretty small, of course you're going to be okay with someone else doing that, because you already do it yourself, if that makes sense. So that brings me to the question of like, if you are in a relationship and you are like, is it the relationship or is it me? That is a big question that you need to really sit with and reflect on. And number one, only you know the answer to this. You can talk to your friends, you can talk to your family members, you can even go to therapy, and therapists usually aren't supposed to give you advice. It's not really what therapy is for. They're supposed to give you support and help guide you to your answer. That's kind of the type of therapist that I am. But ultimately, like, you should be doing your own self-reflection to know if this is the right person for you. Because whenever you talk to your friends or other people, even if they are well-intentioned people, they might project things onto you that is their own stuff. Like, well, you just need to stay with them because they have all these great traits to them. Like, why would you leave someone? And that's because they're actually scared to leave their partner. You know what I mean? Or they might tell you, oh my goodness, yeah, leave, blah, 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 blah. And that's because they have patterns of leaving. So, of course, if it helps you to talk to your friend and hear different perspectives, but I'm just saying, try to stay objective if you do that, and take all of the information kind of with a grain of salt for your own interpretation, not as truth, because only you know your truth. And that is why therapy can be so helpful if you are navigating a breakup or if you are navigating a difficult point in your relationship, because usually therapists are going to be very objective and unbiased, and they are going to help you come to your answers and be there to listen and try to hear patterns and things that you might not be seeing, and maybe even try to challenge you on some things that they might be noticing as well. So some questions that you can ask yourself if you are trying to think, is it my relationship or is it me? Am I self-sabotaging? Am I running away from something? Am I trying to escape something? Am I bored? Am I emotionally unavailable? Ask yourself these questions, because only you can come to that answer. And at the end of the day, if you actually sit and reflect and you do the inner work and you go deep within yourself. I was doing meditations that had to do with tapping into my own body and tapping into where I felt decisions within my body, because I'm so in my mind a lot of the time. It was really, really helpful to do specific meditations where I listened to my gut and I felt what it had to say, and I felt what it would be like in my body if I made this decision versus if I didn't, if I felt expansive versus contracted. I did all of these things, and that is how I got to the answer of ending the relationship. So, like I said, I went to therapy. That was very eye opening for me. I spent time alone, went on a lot of walks alone. I listened to a lot of podcasts, heard other people's stories. I'm also very spiritual, and I tapped into my spirituality during this time, which was really, really helpful because a big thing is you cannot hear your intuition if you have constant noise. And that's what I mean also by if you're always talking to your friends about it and hearing what they have to say, or if you're never actually spending the time to sit with your feelings and sit and reflect on your life. And goes for anything. How are you ever going to expect to make intuitive decisions in your life and make heart led decisions, deep, intuitive wisdom that each and every person has if you are constantly distracting yourself with mindless things that actually aren't helping you in some way? So, walking, going on walks. I went to Hawaii by myself, sitting in silence, doing meditations, journaling. All of these things really, really, really helped guide me, and they continue to help guide me in my life whenever I am sitting with big decisions. A big thing when it comes to breakups is self-trust. A lot of people don't trust themselves to be alone. They don't trust themselves to be able to survive without this person. They don't trust their own decisions. Maybe that you've never made decisions on your own. And a lot of times, some people won't even trust their own intuition. And that's a really, really sad thing. That makes me sad. So if you're a person who constantly ignores your intuition, this is your invitation to start listening, because I swear on everything, your body knows more than anything else. You could get all of the advice from all of your friends and all of your family members and what you're reading in the books or what this person did, but your journey is yours and your experience. Only you are the expert of your own life. So you are the only person. Your body is so intelligent. And so I want you to truly start to believe in yourself and trust in your body's wisdom. And you could start with small things when it comes to self-trust. I could do a whole episode on self-trust because this is something that I personally struggled with too. But you have to trust yourself. You have to trust your intuition. You have to trust the nudges that you're going to be okay and that you're going to be able to figure it out and that you are stronger than you think you are. Another thing I want to talk about is spirituality. Like I said, spirituality is something that continues to help me, but spirituality does not have to be going to church. I don't go to church. Spirituality could be your own relationship with a higher power. It could be nature. It could be setting intentions. You could start to dabble in experimenting with different forms of spirituality, learning about different religions if that interests you. Yoga is a spiritual practice. It's a way of connecting to your body, to yourself. Meditation is also a very spiritual practice. Feeling held by something bigger than yourself is extremely comforting. So if you're trying to make a decision about whether you should stay in a relationship or leave, or if you're going through a breakup, feeling held, knowing that you're going to be okay no matter what, knowing that you're connected to something greater and that you have this higher purpose, or that you're going to be okay and you're on the right path. That is what spirituality brings to a lot of people, is ease. And it helps people get through really tough times. That's why when people go through something really, really hard, first place they will go, not everybody, but I'm saying a lot of people, they start to get attracted to God and going to church, because they are like, wow, I have been through so much crazy stuff. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, I need God, or I need something more, because that was really eye-opening and crazy. And there has to be something else to all of this. And so spirituality can be very, very helpful when it comes to that. The last thing is, if you're trying to make a decision about a breakup, is surrender. You have to be okay with not knowing the outcomes. You have to be okay with letting go of control and being like, if I do make this decision to end this relationship, I have to be okay with not knowing how that's going to be. It could be absolute crap for years. It could be awesome for years. I could literally do so many amazing things, or it could be really, really hard, or it could be messy and it could last so long. And like, you have to be okay with not having everything figured out. And that's really hard for people with anxiety, because they like to have structure, they like predictability. Our nervous systems love predictability, but sometimes in life, you have to be able to let go and make a decision based on your intuition that you have done reflection about, and trust yourself and surrender to what is ahead for you, and trusting in yourself that no matter what, you're going to be able to figure it out, because you've gone through probably some really hard stuff and you've always been okay. And so this means you're going to be okay too. So being able to surrender and with open arms and accept the reality of that you might not know everything, and that you might not have certainty, and you might not know how this is going to go or what it's going to look like. You have to be okay with that. And you have to be able to lean on your own things, your own self-care, your own support, your own grounding tools that help you. So the other piece to this that I said I wanted to talk about was, it's say you are going through the breakup. So what are some things that can be helpful for you if you are going through a breakup? I went through a very, very hard breakup, and these are things that literally saved me, like saved my life in every single way. Number one, use this as an opportunity to find yourself. I know that sounds so cheesy a little bit, but truly nothing cracks you open like a heartbreak, and losing what you thought was going to be forever, and losing this connection with somebody. So let yourself be cracked open and try new things. Meet new people, go meet new friends, go do different things, try new hobbies. Let yourself be open. It's you know what? Screw it. If I'm not going to be with this person on this path, then I'm going to just completely change my entire path. Why not? Because this isn't working out. So let's just see what the heck happens, you know? So it's if you could make one big change, you might as well go and start making a lot of changes and see what happens, because this is a perfect opportunity to do that. Traveling, traveling is an amazing way to learn about yourself, to reflect, to see the world, to learn about the world, to open yourself up to new experiences. So let yourself travel. Maybe plan a trip, or plan little trips, or go see a friend that maybe lives somewhere else. Another thing, if you're going through a breakup, lean on your people, because you no longer have that person anymore. You're gonna need support. You're gonna need people. We need connection as humans. And if you don't have that intimate or romantic connection, friendships can be very romantic. If you have a good relationship with your family, lean on your family. Also meeting new friends and meeting new people in your community, maybe that you haven't met before, finding some things going on, some events, stuff like that. Just let yourself be open to still receiving support and love, even if it isn't in a romantic and intimate way. Another thing is doing things that keep you grounded. Super, super important. Maybe that's continuing to go to therapy so you have that outlet for yourself. Maybe that's spending time in nature, doing a yoga practice. Maybe that's journaling. Maybe that's doing your self-care, your self-nurture. You have to make sure that despite all of the craziness that might happen in a breakup, you have to find things that keep you grounded and keep you level and keep you anchored into you. Doesn't necessarily have to mean when everything feels like literally a tornado, you need your chains, to your body, so that you don't feel like you're also spiraling, because it is going to feel like that. You're going to feel like you're spiraling sometimes, but if you have those anchors, maybe that's people, maybe that's hobbies that you do, maybe that's an animal, your therapy, all these things. You got to find those things that keep you grounded when you're navigating a breakup, because it can get really crazy and really hard sometimes. Another thing is staying busy. And there's a balance here. You want to stay busy without avoiding your emotions, because this is something I love to do whenever I'm going through something hard. Historically, my pattern is just to numb out. We're going to avoid feeling that. And let me tell you, it will come up. Even if it's 10 years down the line, the things that you avoid, what is it? What you resist persists. So you have to stay busy, keep yourself busy, try new things. It can be helpful when you're going through a breakup to be I'm not going to just sit in this sad, sorrow, pity, grief mess. I need to get out there and get moving and get going and get living. But there is a time that you do need to sit in your feelings, and you do need to let yourself cry, and you do need to let yourself feel all those emotions, feel angry, feel grief, and process it. So make sure that you're giving yourself time to process what's actually happened, and letting yourself cry and letting yourself grieve and go through all those emotions, but also make sure you're also getting going with life. There's something that I teach in therapy, and it's the dual process grief model. And it's basically loss oriented healing versus future oriented healing, or like moving forward oriented healing. And you need both. Some people get really focused in the loss oriented. So that is like where we're talking about it, we're crying, we're working on our grief, we're working on our emotions, we're feeling, we're, doing all those things that we like do in therapy. And then there's a future where it's like, okay, now what is my life now? What is my new life now? What am I building now? How am I learning from this? How am I making meaning from this? What is the story of my life now? So it's like that forward moving of like making sense and trying to keep going in a new way. But we need some of that loss oriented healing as well. So there is a balance. And when you're going through a breakup, it is like going through grief. Grief is not just for people who pass away. Grief can be for losing a job. Grief can be becoming a parent, you grieving your old self. Grief can be going through a breakup. It can be going through a friendship breakup. It can be moving away from home, even. So there's so many different versions of grief, and breakup and heartbreak could definitely be a version of grief because you are losing a person and you're losing a part of yourself that you were with that person. So I know that was a lot, but I'm not here to tell you whether you should stay in your relationship or not. Only you can answer that. My hope is simply that this conversation helps you become a little bit braver and a little more connected to yourself, a little bit more of like, okay, so here's what I can do. And maybe I can do it. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I do have the answers inside of me. Maybe I should start to go to therapy. Maybe I should start to journal. So whatever decision you make, let it be yours, not fears, not society's, not someone else's expectations, not someone else's script. Your life is way too precious to live in accordance to another script than what you want it to be. So you have to trust yourself and you have to trust your intuition, even if that means ending the 5-year healthy relationship like I did. So I hope this helped. I hope this gave you a little bit of courage, a little bit of optimism, a little bit of hope. And yeah, I will see you in another podcast episode. Bye, everybody.